Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 o'clock p.m. and serves as the city's policy-making and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the Chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. The Chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at www.siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting www.siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City Government.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, August 13th. Certainly pleased to have everybody in attendance. Start our meeting with a roll call of the City Council.
Council members Rolfing?
Here.
Staggers?
Present.
Aguilar? Here. Anderson?
Here.
Entenmann?
Here.
Erpenbach?
Here.
Jameson?
Here.
Karski?
Here. Very pleased to have Pastor Pat McClanahan of the Common Ground Church here in Sioux Falls, who will lead us in our invocation tonight. We'd ask you to stand and remain standing after Pastor Pat is done with the prayer for our Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, Pastor Pat.
Thank you. You know, I was looking this last week, and in Romans, Paul tells us that each one of us should honor and respect those who are in power over us. But I also realize that that's a confusing thought sometimes, you know, when we're in disagreement. But so we kind of focus maybe the invocation on that, you know, seeking honor and unity and just the peace of God over the proceedings here tonight. So will you bow your heads with me? Father God, we come before you, and we come here knowing that we are blessed to live in a place where we can come before our government, where we can express our desires, our concerns, and our interests. And even when we don't agree, Lord, we have that ability and that right and that privilege in this country. And so I thank you, Lord, for this meeting tonight, and I ask that your presence would weigh on this as people speak, as people share, and that it would be done in a sense of brotherly love and compassion, and that your presence would just bring a peace here, a peace that doesn't always make sense to us, that peace that passes all understanding. And we thank you, Lord, in the glorious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Pat, thank you so much. We'll now continue our meeting with the consent agenda. Council, any changes to tonight's consent agenda?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Now move on to our regular agenda. Council, any changes?
Move to approve Erpenbach.
Second Anderson.
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to approve our regular agenda, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. As Pastor Pat mentioned in his prayer, it is a great country, a great city. You do have the opportunity to engage the council. This is that opportunity. If you'd like to come forward, please do. Just introduce yourself to the people of Sioux Falls. And if you could leave your comments to 5 minutes or less, we'd appreciate that. Would anybody want to speak tonight? Welcome, Mr. Stenga.
Tim Stanga. One thing I found out, when the mics aren't working, you're not heard on TV. Had a lot of calls stating that they didn't hear about 2 minutes of what I had to say last week. So I'm going to reiterate that a lot of the projects that are done in Sioux Falls, between road projects and that, it's done through the mayor, but it's done through the city council. The city council gives the final say on what's going to be done and what's going to be appropriated. People don't realize that. But talked to a lot of people over the last week. Ask them what brings them back into Sioux Falls. A lot of them state that they got to take care of their parents because it's their responsibility. And some of them tell me that they can't make it because their student loans are too high and they can't afford to buy a house and to be able to live on their own, so they came back to move in with their parents. It sort of bothers me because we come out and say how good Sioux Falls is doing, but yet there's a lot of people that are hurting outside these doors, and I don't think those people are being heard. Raising taxes right now is not the thing to do. I think it should be given back to the public for at least a year to be able to try to let them get back on their feet and be able to give them a little extra money. If I'm correct, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but if we're going to appropriate money to take care of Obamacare, I don't think that's the citizens of Sioux Falls' responsibility to do that. I think that it's the government's responsibility, and I don't know, Mayor, and that's why I said it's stated in the paper. That's what I'm going off from. If it isn't, then maybe, again, go through the budget, maybe on TV, or maybe go through it somehow, that people know in Sioux Falls what the budget really is. Because a lot of people don't know what money's being spent on. They don't know what the extra $19 million is for. It could be where we're going to finish the River Greenway. It could be that we're going to put new flower boxes downtown. Could be adding parks to the city of Sioux Falls, which I think people should just drive around town and see how many parks that aren't being used, and to realize that if we need any more parks right now, because there's a lot of parks not being used. I just think that the people of Sioux Falls are not being informed, and that's why they're not engaged. And until we start informing the voters out here and realizing what the money's being spent on, then maybe people might get engaged. Maybe people might start doing something. It comes down to that FEMA money. When we go on TV and we tell everybody how Sioux Falls is really doing, and don't worry, Sioux Falls, we can take care of it, I really believe that knowing that we were going to turn it into FEMA to begin with, we were misleading the people again. And I just think that it's time that we start telling the people the truth. I think that we should inform people more on what's going on in Sioux Falls and what we're spending our money on. And how we do that, it's through the media. And if the media is told that, no, we don't want to rock the boat, or we don't want to open up any cans of worms, open it up. Don't be afraid. because people want to know what's going on in this town. They want to know what their money's being spent on. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stinga. Folks, is there anybody else who wanted to address the council tonight? Thank you, Tim. We appreciate it. We'll now move on to item number 4.
Item number 4 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 20th, 2013 at 7:00 p.m. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapters 91 and 150 of the Code of Ordinances of the city to modify automatic fire extinguishing provisions for multifamily residences, to revise the membership qualifications for certain boards in Chapters 55 and 121, and to insert the responsible position for administration of certain licenses in Chapter 110.
Good evening, Ron Bell, Chief Building Official with Building Services. What you have is a first reading for an ordinance. The first 2 sections is an ordinance that changes the International Fire Code and International Building Code. If you recall, back in January, we adopted the 2012 editions of both the Building Code and the Fire Code, and one of the issues that came up was sprinkling apartment buildings. And that resulted in an amendment that we maintained the 16 units in three levels as the requirement for sprinkling. But with Councilman Anderson's request, there was a committee that was formed that studied the issue of sprinkling apartment buildings. The committee was made up of 13 members, and it was made up of a couple of city staff, realtors, property owners, contractors, architects, and so forth. And we had about 5 meetings on that. And about the 3rd meeting, we found that the state fire marshal, through his rules procedure when he adopted the 2009 International Building Code and Fire Code, made a rule change at the state level that said that any apartment or multifamily level that is 6 or more is required to be sprinklered. So what the first 2 sections of this ordinance does is gets us in line with what happened at the state level back in 2010. The Section 3 and Section 4 is dealing with our boards. We have electrical board and a plumbing board where the membership is very, very specific, and it's difficult to get people to serve on our boards, but when we have such specific requirements for like a electrical engineer, a journeyman, and contractors, it's sometimes really hard to fill that. So what this does is it goes back to our building, mechanical, and property maintenance code to say that anybody that serves on the boards have to have the experience and training to pass on matters. So that's just getting that consistent with our other ordinance concerning boards. And the last section is nothing more than a cleanup on the codification that puts the Chief Building Services official in charge of those licenses that Building Services administers. Thank you.
Ron, thank you very much. Folks, this is a first reading, so only the council will have an opportunity to engage Ron tonight. Councilor Staggers.
Yes. Ron, you mentioned that the State Fire Marshal instituted a rule in 2009. Is that right?
2010. It was
2010.
Well, it was adoption of the 2009 Building Code and Fire Code, and it got put in January of 2010, I believe it was, or June of 2010.
Okay. Here we are in 2013. I guess I'm wondering, why didn't we know about that?
Because there wasn't enough information. There was a lack of information from the State Fire Marshal to all those communities that administer the building codes. And the city of Aberdeen, Yankton, Sioux Falls, Brookings, and Mitchell all had the same type of equivalent ordinance that we had, which is the 3 levels and the 16 units. And I don't want to throw the State Fire Marshal, Paul Merriman, under the bus. He's a very good guy, but there was really a lack of communication on the State Fire Marshal's office to those communities, specifically us, that rule change was made such that we could have amended our ordinances when it was made. There was simply a lack of communication.
Okay. And if I could ask a question to the city attorney. Dave, since we're a charter community here, we have to comply with the U.S. Constitution, the state constitution, state law. This was not formally put into state law. It's just a rule from the fire marshal. Do we still have to comply?
Counselor, the state statutes that enable us to enact a fire code also provide the requirement that we comply with whatever the requirements or regulations are put out by the state fire marshal. So we cannot be any more lax in our rules than what the state fire marshal provides. So the state fire marshal, in essence, provides the floor of what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Council, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 20th for this item?
So moved.
Thank you. Councilor Aguilar's made that motion. Thank you. And seconded by Councilor Entenmann. If there is no further discussion, yes, I'm sorry.
Excuse me,
Councilor
sir.
Entenmann?
Councilor
Oh,
Karski.
Councilor
made
Karski. I apologize. Councilor Karski seconded that. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you very much. Item 5.
Item 5 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 20th, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 131, Offenses Against the Public, by adding Section 131.007, Ticket Scalping, which will prohibit ticket scalping for tickets being sold above face value.
Welcome, Tracy.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. What I thought I would do is review the substance of the ordinance and then talk a little bit about kind of why this is coming before the council at this time. And I know Wes Hall from the Sioux Falls Sports Authority is also here to make a few remarks as well. The ordinance is really, I think, fairly straightforward. It has 4 sections. The first section basically lays out what is prohibited. It simply states that selling tickets at a price greater than face value will be prohibited. And that section also indicates that that this ordinance would apply to ticketed events like sporting events, theatrical, musical events, or other events at public entertainment venues. Of course, with any good rule, there are exceptions. The second section of the ordinance identifies the exceptions or exclusions. The first really is more of a clarification, I would say, than an exception. It simply says that selling tickets at or below face value is not a violation of the ordinance, so that's not considered scalping as such. Reselling by event sponsors is also would be permitted under the ordinance. Transaction that would take place in someone's private residence would be an exclusion from the ordinance as well. And there's also an exception for online ticket resellers on the condition that they have certain consumer protections, that those online resellers of tickets that you're familiar with would all have those consumer protections, refund guarantees, toll-free numbers, dispute resolution procedures, those kinds of things would be required by the ordinance in order to meet that exception for an online ticket reseller. And then the last exception would be for nonprofit entities that want to auction off a ticket for charitable purposes. That also would be permitted. So those things would not be considered scalping under the ordinance. The third section identifies a buffer zone for those sales that can take place at or below face value of a ticket. There would be a buffer zone so that you can't be out in front of a venue selling tickets, but and that buffer zone would be a half-mile radius of the event. The last section of the ordinance really addresses kind of a nuance here regarding doubleheader tickets, that once a ticket is used to see the first game of a doubleheader, it cannot be resold. So that's really the substance of the ordinance. And just by way of why this is coming to you, let me assure you we don't have a problem with scalping. We certainly don't think we're trying to correct a problem here. This is really, the ordinance would really be preemptive in nature. Many other cities and states have similar regulations, and it really will provide a certain level of consumer protection. The idea really for this ordinance really comes from looking ahead. I know there are a number of individuals and organizations looking ahead to the eventual opening of the event center. And so that's kind of what's driving this, the event center opening up next fall. The Sioux Falls Sports Authority, I mentioned Wes Hall is here. They certainly are very interested in bringing new events to the event center. And Wes will talk a little bit about why the ordinance is important to the Sports Authority. from my perspective, the ordinance will simply position the community to take advantage of opportunities for some of the new events that we aren't able to host now, and let Wes touch on that a little bit more and stand by for questions.
Tracy, thank you. Wes, welcome.
Thank you. Beginning with the calendar years or academic years of 14-15.
Wes,
yes.
I apologize. Can you just introduce yourself to the people of Sioux
My
Falls?
apologies. Wes Hall, Executive Director of the Sioux Falls Sports Authority. During the academic years of 14-15 through 17-18, NCAA is bidding out 284 national and regional championships. Currently, with the facilities that we have in place and will have in place with the opening of the new event center, we are now afforded the opportunity to bid on national and regional championships to bring them here to Sioux Falls. As of August 9th, the Sioux Falls Sports Authority has submitted intents to bid on 22 national and regional championships that potentially would be hosted at the Sanford Pentagon, the new event center, and also the track and field complex over at the University of Sioux Falls. For each event, there is a special packet of information, the bid specs that we have to review. In reviewing all those bid specs and then talking with headquarters in Indianapolis, the NCAA does require that potential host cities have a ticket scalping ordinance in place. So that would be one of the things that we would have to check off when I submit the bids, which are due on September 16th. This is just an opportunity to bring large national championships here to the city of Sioux Falls, to bring tremendous amount of recognition for what we have built here in the city. And if you were to review the ordinance, and you can look at other cities that have similar ordinances, we looked at Omaha and Oklahoma City in particular, and these are two large cities that currently host NCAA championships annually.
Wes, thank you very much,
you.
and please don't leave.
Okay.
Council, this is a first reading, so leave it in your hands. Councilor Entenmann.
Wes, may I?
Please.
Question. Wes, it's my understanding, if I'm not mistaken, that this is an opportunity, and the opportunity to bid on these events comes again when?
The next opportunity would potentially come in the summer of 2018.
So if we don't have something like this, we're just out of luck for 4 years, basically.
Yes, sir. It's a 4-year bid process.
Thank you.
Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Did this go through a council committee, this proposed ordinance?
Tracy, would you come forward, please? Thank you.
No, the ordinance did not go through a council committee.
Okay. And that just brings something up. I think that the city council itself should probably add to the procedures book here the policy on what comes before a Sioux Falls City Council committee. You know, it's hard for the administration to know, well, should this go to a committee or not, and we don't have any clear direction or anything like that. And I think this one should have gone before a committee here of the city council. And then also, we have the NCAA basically trying to tell us what to do here as far as legislation in Sioux Falls when it comes to scalping. I guess I resent that, them telling us that. But at the same time, being realistic, to try to get some of the NCAA activities here, why don't we just have in this ordinance directed toward NCAA activities instead of making it, you know, across the city? So, for example, USF and Augustana are going to be having a football game here in September. There's going to be a lot of people that want to see it. And we're applying this scalping ordinance to that particular event too, I believe. Why not just focus specifically on the NCAA?
And Wes, it's probably not for you. Tracy, Wes doesn't represent the city. Tracy, any comments on that?
Well, it is, but we're talking about.
This is an ordinance, as I say, is kind of being driven by the Sports Authority Board. I know they were the ones that approached the city, and it's really modeled in working with the city attorney's office on ordinances written in other communities that host events. And I'm not going to stand up here and say, as I said, we don't have a problem with scalping, but that doesn't mean we can't have one. I don't know why you wouldn't, what the opposition would be to prohibiting scalping at other venues, public venues as well. I don't see the public interest in permitting that kind of activity. That's certainly something for you folks to decide. If you think that's a good thing, that's certainly within the purview of the council.
What's wrong with scalping?
Pardon me?
What's wrong with scalping?
Well, I think there's certainly an opportunity. It does provide an opportunity for people to get ripped off. I think as I said, this is really a lot about consumer protection. I'm sure that's why the NCAA has that kind of a criteria in their eligibility rules, so that consumers are protected against being taken advantage of. They don't want to be associated with a situation. NCAA would not want to be associated with something where people have been taken advantage of.
Well, if I could just respond,
I don't know what the public
taking
interest is.
advantage of is a very subjective thing. If I'm willing to pay $100 for a ticket, and it's a scalping price, and I want to pay the $100, I'll go ahead and pay it and be able to go to the event. With this ordinance prohibiting scalping, I won't be able to go to the event then. So this is not consumer protection at all.
Councilor Jameson.
Thank you. Tracy or Wes, maybe you can even add some insight. At the end of the day, the arena, the facility, even the city makes a deal with the promoter who comes and books the venue. So the city isn't here to gain or would be have a loss with the scalping process. But how does this help the consumer? Because at the end of the day, that's, I think, what we're after with this ordinance is to help protect the consumer. So if you could just elaborate a little more on that, either one of you, if you can. But that's really the question, is how are we helping the public with this ordinance?
Well, I think first and foremost, the benefit to the community is that it puts us in a position to bring these kinds of events to town. Because as I understand it, without that type of a rule, we're simply either ineligible, or we certainly will not be competitive in bringing these kinds of events to town. So that's really the driving force behind this.
That one makes sense, real easy for all of us. But the other side of it, when you walk up to an event, and you got people saying, "Get your ticket, I got a ticket here," there is an element of distrust. You're kind of like, and it does kind of create an awkward feeling. And I've been at a lot of events where that's occurring, and you're like, well, could we get better tickets? Who is this guy? But I sense a lot of value in this ordinance. I'm just trying to appreciate it better. And as this discussion goes from you and others who are bringing it forward, how is this further protecting the consumer? That's what.
Well, I think there is certainly an opportunity for, whether it's counterfeit tickets or, if you buy things online, you don't necessarily always get what you pay for. That can happen if you're trading money in the parking lot out in front of a venue. I wouldn't be the first person that's ever happened to get up to the door and my ticket won't get me in because it's a counterfeit ticket. Those kinds of things do happen. So there's certainly an element of consumer protection here. You can't control every event nor every situation, but I think the things combined, some element of consumer protection that's afforded under this, and the overriding benefit for the community to bring the kinds of events to town that we've talked about for a couple of years now, at least put us in the game to bring some of those events to town. It seems to me like it ought to be a slam dunk.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Just to add to the discussion, this also takes away the incentive for someone to go and buy a large block of tickets in a sold-out concert and then turn around and sell them for an extreme profit. I think that's probably the direction that we're trying to go in here. We have venues that have limited seats. From what I've heard, the NBA game is only going to have just a few hundred tickets available, and I believe they went on sale this morning. So, this allows people to actually, it just takes away that incentive. It allows people to be able to get those tickets at the cost that they're actually put out there as. Just my 2 cents.
Before I go back to Councilor Entenmann, was there anybody else on the council who wanted to speak? Councilor Karski.
Just a question. I want to clarify under the exceptions to this rule here. Number 4, it says, for ticket brokers found through an internet website who meet the following requirements, and gives a long list of what you have to do to meet it. If I have buy tickets to a certain event and then I find out I can't attend that event and I advertise them for sale on Craigslist, would that fall under that purview of an internet website? if I'm selling them personally?
Well, I'm not an authority on Craigslist, but just off the cuff, I would say that probably would not fall under that exception unless those conditions are met. Now, if the actual transaction takes place, if I come over to your house, if we connect through Craigslist and I come over to your house and we consummate the transaction that way, I think that probably would fall under the exception for under the third one there, within the home or dwelling of the buyer or the seller. So that could certainly happen, and maybe that's a way for Councilor Staggers to get his ticket as well.
Councilor Enneman.
You know, I do represent the city on the Sioux Falls Sports Authority, and I was involved in this. And we had quite a discussion. The city attorney's office was also involved. A couple of things did precipitate it. And of course, it is the mission of the Sioux Falls Sports Authority to try to bring events that are unique to the region and national events to us. And that's Wes's mission, and those people that serve on that board, they take that really to heart. And this is a great opportunity for us to bring some events that we probably would never ever have in this community. And now the venues that we have are going to make it possible. We did follow, it is the rule and a requirement of the NCAA, and we feel that it does make sense for us to do this and to give Wes the tools to try to bring these events to Sioux Falls. In the same mode, to answer Councilman Jameson's question about what can we do, I personally know people that have attended the Final Four. They bought tickets to the tune of $500 for 4 tickets. They went into their seats, they had the ticket, there was somebody else sitting in their seats. Come to find out that he was holding counterfeit tickets, and he was asked to leave because he did not have the proper ticket. So there is, and you asked, it is consumer protection, but also for those people that have those venues, the sponsors, the NCAA, they want to ensure that fraud is not going to take place at their events, and that adds to the credibility of our schools and those kinds of things that we're trying to do. So in that respect, I think that kind of answers a little bit to it too. I really do believe that this is good. We actually talked with the Sioux Falls school system, the Catholic school systems. We talked to both USF and Augustana College, as well as the Sports Authority, the Arena, SMG. We talked to all the folks that were involved with this, and they all confirmed that they were in favor of this ordinance. They had absolutely no objection. So we did do our homework on this, and I do commend the city attorney's office and the group for helping us to put this ordinance together. So with that, I'm going to just encourage that everybody vote for this proposed ordinance.
And folks, just to remember, we're only in the first reading. Still plenty of time for more due diligence, discussion, and debate. I think the goal tonight would be to consider whether the council wants to consider this for a second reading. I don't want to cut off debate or discussion, but that is what we're here for. With that in mind, does anybody have any more questions? Yes, Councilor.
Mr. Mayor, I move
Councilor Jameson.
Sorry.
Thank you. I think this ordinance is probably a part of a sign of a growing community, but as far as policing goes, you know, when somebody does get caught scalping, what would be the punishment?
Punish him, God.
I just think it'd be fair to say.
Councilor Jameson, it would be like any other ordinance, up to a $500 fine, 30 days in jail or both. And again, we almost hardly ever seek jail time, so it'd be more of a penalty in terms of a fine. And a city ordinance violation is essentially treated like a Class 2 misdemeanor, kind of the lowest misdemeanor in the court system.
That's a good question. Councilor Raymond, did you have a...
I move that we set the second reading.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Anneman has made a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 20th, and that was seconded by Councilor Karski. Councilor Staggers.
Yes, I think we're mixing, of course, counterfeit tickets and scalping. If I had any counterfeit tickets, my inclination would be to unload them as fast as I could and sell them for a cheaper price, sell them below market, you know, what's on the ticket itself. So, yeah, we can eliminate scalping and all this, or I shouldn't say eliminate, but make it unlawful. But we can still have people having counterfeit tickets. Doesn't make any difference. So this doesn't have anything to do with counterfeit tickets. It's just scalping.
Very good. There is a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 20th. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 6.
Item 6 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, September 10th, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. A first reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota approving the release of the west 50 feet of a permanent sanitary sewer easement located in Lot 8 in Block 4 of Country Club Heights subdivision of Track 7 in the northwest 1/4 of Section 30 T101N R49W of the 5th PM, Minnehaha County, South Dakota.
Good evening, Chad Heavey with the Engineering Division. This easement is located on a back property line on a lot between Kiwanis Avenue and the Minnehaha Country Club. This portion of the easement does not contain any utilities, and the owner has requested it be released. Engineering is in support.
Council, any comments on this?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, September 10th, and that was seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 7.
Item 7 is a resolution vacating the public right-of-way on a portion of North Bluebell Lane as shown on Exhibit 1.
An issue developed late this afternoon regarding item 7, and so I respectfully request that this hearing be deferred until September 10th.
Move to defer till September 10th.
Councilor James, thank you.
Second, Entenmann.
And Councilor Entenmann, thank you for seconding that. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 8.
Item 8 is a resolution vacating the public right-of-way on a portion of South Minnesota Avenue as shown on Exhibit A.
This right-of-way is unimproved and is south of 57th Street and east of Minnesota Avenue. The right-of-way does contain utilities, and a utility easement will be maintained. This right-of-way is a remnant piece left over from when Minnesota Avenue was realigned. There was a comment last time on whether this piece of ground could be built on. The property owner that petitioned this also owns all of the land south of Sunnymead and then east of Minnesota Avenue. So it's already it's enclosed with a fence on his property. He maintains it. So the small piece of property, this item and the next item, could not be built on by themselves, but he could potentially build something there in the future, but it'd have to be combined with other parcels that he owns. And engineering does recommend approval.
Thanks, Chad. Is there anyone in the audience wanting to speak to this? Council?
Move to approve, Entenmann.
Second, Erpenbach.
It's been a motion to approve item 8, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 9.
Item 9 is a resolution vacating the public right-of-way on a portion of South Sunnymead Circle as shown on Exhibit A.
This right-of-way is also unimproved and south of 57th and east of Minnesota Avenue. It does contain utilities, and an easement will be maintained. Again, it's a remnant from when Minnesota Avenue was relined, and engineering does recommend approval.
Thanks, Chad. Anybody want to speak to this item? Council?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison? Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 10.
Item 10 is a resolution approving the special assessment roll for litter removal in various areas in the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Chair Lubbers with the Office of Public Works.
This special assessment tonight represents a cooperative effort between Public Works and the Health Department. The Health Department identifies litter violations on properties, and then we work with them to do the cleanups. The landfill staff or street department staff, depending on the size of the cleanup, would exercise the cleanup. So there's 11 properties where they've been invoiced and billed, and we haven't collected on those invoices, and so the special assessment represents the costs associated with that to each one of those properties or cleanups.
Trent, thank you. Is there anyone who wanted to speak to this item? Council?
Move to approve Entenmann.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Edmonds made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Karski. Councilor Anderson Jr.
Trent, please. Shows 10 properties. Is that correct? For a total value of $1,939,060?
No, sir.
Excuse me, 1,900.
There's 10 properties, 11 cleanups, and the total is around $2,000. I believe it's $2,075.10.
Are any of these property owners disputing any of this?
As of today, I have not received any information that a property owner was disputing. They just have not paid.
Thank you.
Councilor Staggers.
Yes, in regard to the property owners, are we sure they've all been notified? In other words, when you talk about litter like this doesn't seem to be a very significant issue. So I could understand that maybe there are people that own this property that are out of the state or whatever and are not aware of this. Or are we certain that they have been notified, that they're aware of this?
Aware of the billing or aware that they had an obligation to clean up litter on their property?
Aware of the assessment against them?
The property owner of record has been invoiced and billed. In some cases, the properties are in foreclosure, and so the bank that is holding the foreclosure has been notified.
So the bank's going to be paying for the costs?
It would be assessed against the property taxes on the property, so that's how the money would be collected.
Okay.
There has been a motion. It has been seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Item 11.
Item 11 is a resolution approving the special assessment roll for repair or demolition of real property in various areas in the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Good evening, Kevin Smith with Planning and Building Services. You have before you tonight two properties. One is at 515 South Duluth Avenue and the other is at 600 East 14th Street. These were two demolitions that were done by the city of Sioux Falls under contract, and similar to the litter cleanups that you just heard, these are costs that would be assessed back onto the properties, and the city would receive payment when the property taxes are paid.
Kevin, thank you. Is there any discussion on this amongst the audience? Very good. Councilor Staggers?
Yeah. Kevin, do we have any pictures of these properties? Oftentimes we do. So
the photographs very available. One is a two-story, or was a two-story vacant structure at 15th and Duluth, and I believe that one suffered extensive fire damage, and the owners did not make any other necessary repairs. That's the one Kelly is pulling up that you can see. On a couple of different occasions, we were required to go out and secure the property as well because people kept breaking into it during the time it was vacant, and ultimately what brought us to this point is we were forced to demolish it. The other property at 14th Street, I believe, had extensive termite damage and was deemed an unsafe structure. So similar to the last one, the city of Sioux Falls sent a notice and order to the owner who was non-responsive, and we ultimately demolished the structure, and those are the costs you see before you. In short, these properties were not livable.
Council, would anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve Entenmann.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Anderson made a motion to approve this, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. If there is no further discussion on roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 12.
Item 12 is a resolution approving the special assessment rule for the mowing of weeds and grasses in various areas in the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
You have before you assessment rolls for 110 total properties in Minnehaha and Lincoln counties. The total assessed costs are $7,308.50. That's an average of $66 per property. Just to give you a sense of perspective, last year at this same time we brought before you 216 properties, and those averaged $111 per property. So in the past year, we have a new contractor who gave the city a better deal, which ultimately has resulted in lower costs for the assessed properties within the city of Sioux Falls. So we do go out and bid these services, and the assessments you have before you are for properties that were not mowed by the owner or by the manager of the property, and the city was required to. And similar to the littering and also the demolition costs, we would recoup these costs at the time the property taxes are paid.
Kevin, thank you. Is anyone in the audience want to speak to this? Council? Oh, please come forward. And ma'am, if you just introduce yourself to the people of Sioux Falls, please. Thank you. Welcome.
I'm Carol Flower.
Carol.
I'm Carol Flower. I just had a question, and that is how much notification time is given to people? I ask this because one of my dear friends died in a fire, and when I drive past her house, I notice the windows are boarded up and so forth, and I suspect that her house is going to sit that way until it's through with their probate for her, for instance. I don't know, but I'm wondering how much time, for instance, in these two houses has been allowed in contacting people versus the time that you finally implement whatever notice and decision you make. Just a question.
Okay. And Ms. Flower, right now we're on the, it sounds like you want to kind of go back to the prior one involving the two homes. Sure. Kevin, would you mind addressing Ms. Flower's question in terms of the notice that someone has before we tear it down?
Certainly. It's essentially an 18-month process that we go through unless the chief building official, Ron Bell, determines that it's an imminent hazard. So if it's just a vacant structure and is otherwise safe and secure, you may never hear from us. But if there is something dramatically wrong, let's say there's a failing foundation, which has happened, and it's a safety issue, we'll move more quickly. But generally speaking, it's 18 months. And in realistic terms, it'll be about 2 years.
Thanks, Kevin. Councilor Stegers.
Yeah, Kevin, just a quick question. On these assessments, the city is making a little bit of money, isn't it?
We also send out a $100 administrative citation, but I can tell you that it is not a money-making deal for the city. The costs that are assessed are exactly what we are billed by the mowing contractor. So in defense of the property maintenance division, led by Kelly Boyson, who do a tremendous job for the citizens by responding, I would say it is not a moneymaker for us.
I'd do it for
Council, would anybody want to make a motion on this item?
do it for 100.
Move to approve, Entenmann.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Entenmann's made a motion to approve this, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. If there is no further discussion on roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Item 13.
Item 13 is a resolution approving the special assessment roll for snow removal in various areas in the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Good evening. My name is Matt Nelson, the Public Parking Facilities Manager, and what we bring to you tonight is the assessments for the sidewalk snow removal clearing. To give you some background, we did receive 608 complaints, and what we've brought forward is what is unpaid at this time, which is 50 assessments. The average bill on that is $174 and some odd cents, and I can tell you that we've brought that down through our bidding process 3-4 years ago, we were in that $330, $340 on an average bill. Last year was a pretty mild winter. We were slightly over $120, and this year we are approximately $174.
Thanks, Matt. Folks, is there anybody in the audience who want to speak to this? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Al Neese, and my wife and I own a small business. We have about 55 units here in Sioux Falls, and including Baltic. The snow removal in question is for 606 North Highland. I don't know if you have that information in front of you, but anyway, what happened was our tenant became incarcerated, and we were not aware of that. And I guess, Yvonne, if you can share with the council members how you became aware that we needed to resolve the issue, and then I'll continue on, if that's all right. This is my wife, Yvonne. Thank you.
Good evening. I was
Yvonne, would you mind introducing yourself?
Niece.
Thank you.
When I was actually, the tenant called me from jail and said that I should go and check his mail. He had taken care of his dog, but I needed to check his mail. And I went over there and found that the sidewalk hadn't been shoveled, and there was a note from the postman to please shovel the walk. So I gave that to my husband, and he went over the next day to do that. We did not get a notice from the city that the walk hadn't been shoveled to their satisfaction, but my husband and the gentleman that we have working for us did go and do that.
Al, did you have some additional comments?
Yes. So when we got notified, or she became aware of it, and we did not find any of the other notifications, and we were not aware that there was any, we thought that the tenant would have talked to somebody to resolve that. And again, we have never had an issue of this before, and if we'd have been aware of it, we would have been able to resolve it. The other thing is there was no communication directly to us as owners of the property. We have our property registered with the city. That would have been easy to be able to look that information up and notify us so we could have resolved it. But when we went over there, as soon as we were notified of that, there was no snow removal done at that point. And then we then took care of the snow. We did not take care of the ice, which you can see on the screen, because by the time we were notified of that, there was also an underlying sheet of ice. Questions?
Thank you. Councilor Stegers.
Yeah. I guess my question for the city is, why wasn't the owner notified?
Per the ordinance, our notification that's required is annually in the newspaper. We do that several times throughout the year. We also go to the properties and we post notices as a courtesy on the property, so a notice would have been posted on the front door. And that's what we would do. That is our procedure.
So you're talking about the newspaper, and then, of course,
we post
posting
the property on.
Right. But now we have the properties being registered. That would seem like a easy thing to, hey, maybe this is a rental property. We'll just take a quick look.
And at times we do call. On this one, the records indicate, it doesn't say that the inspector did call. So I can tell you that we didn't. I can tell you that this would have been received as a complaint. We do it when we go out there. We follow our procedures as it is a safety hazard. A lot of people that may have difficulty walking need to use the sidewalks, call these in. People that walk their dogs, I can give you numerous stories about people calling in with broken arms, and what's cheaper, a sidewalk snow removal bill or a broken arm on a property. So, but no one was called. You're correct.
Okay. I mean, if we're so concerned about somebody breaking their arm, we should do everything we can. Also, if I could ask just another quick question here. When this property was notified by a notice on the door, At that time, are they assessed $100 or?
We do not assess any citations at this point. The only cost that we pass on is the cost of the contractor that they bill us, plus a 6% city sales tax. So we're not making money. We've already paid the contractor for the work.
I guess I'm not quite clear about that. Previously, we were told there was Kevin mentioned $100.
That is correct for the violation, that violation. Currently, for sidewalk snow violations, we do not assess any citations to the property owners. It's only the cost of the removal.
Plus 6%.
Plus 6%,
okay.
which we're required to charge.
And how much was the charge on this one?
The way the bid is broken down, it is the contractor is on a low bid process is $20 per mobilization. So each address they go to, it's a flat $20 charge. The labor rate is $32 per hour. I can tell you this crew, and on this day they were doing several properties, so they did have a truck with a crew of 4. So there were 4 gentlemen in a truck. And then the ice melt that's used is 30 cents a pound. Approximately 3 bags of ice melt were used there. So arriving at the property was $20. 4 men at an hour of labor was $128. And then the ice melt was $45, which is approximately $15 for a bag of ice melt. And it is a high quality, yard safe, pet safe type ice melt. So
you're saying $173 he's being assessed plus 6%?
I have got $193 plus 6%.
Oh, $193 plus 6. And this is a city sidewalk. He does not own it.
The way the state law and city ordinance is written is that the property owner is responsible for that. So.
And that's one thing, I wish we would do, is to thank people in this particular situation, or people during the entire winter for shoveling the city sidewalks free.
Council, would anybody? Yes, Councilor Erpenbach.
Mr. Mayor, I just am recalling the vast number of rental properties in the city of Sioux Falls that get it done, whether the renter is in the jail or not, they get it done. And again, it's state law that requires that the property owner clears the snow, and we all own property and we all get the snow cleared, and so it's just how it works in this community. Is it appropriate to make a motion at this point?
Please.
I would move approval on this item, the entire list.
I'll second it if I could.
There's been a motion to approve this item number 13, and it was seconded by Councilor Karski. Any further discussion? Councilor Karski.
Just curious, when we, for why we don't notify the property owner, I believe we do that for lawn. We don't do that for lawns?
For lawns, they send a letter out for lawns.
To the property owner?
To the property owner.
Okay. Why don't we do that in this case?
The timing is an issue just because it is ice and snow. Weeds in a yard don't prevent somebody from getting to work. They don't make kids walk in the street. They don't prevent people from getting food at the grocery store. The idea is that this is an immediate safety hazard, and it truly is. If it would be the same for some people, it's not having the streets.
And I get that. How many days lapsed from the day we put the sign on the door till we hired somebody to go out there and clear this?
The notice was left on February 26th, and we cleared the property on we re-inspected it on the 28th, so there was approximately a day and a half.
So if we mailed something to the property owner on the 26th, they'd have it on the 27th. They probably could have addressed it.
Possibly.
I agree with Councilor Erpenbach. You own property, you should get it cleared off, and in certain circumstances, maybe you're not aware of it, but I think we do need to do a better job of notifying the property owners. I mean, if we're going to take the time to go and put a sign on their door, I mean, why can't we put a letter in the mail or a phone call? We know who owns it. I think we need to look at changing the way we go about doing these things.
And I know it is being looked at. We've looked at it in the past. We have made changes, and next year this will be handled actually by code enforcement. And I do feel they are better and able to deal with this because that's what they do every day of the year. So I think we do an excellent job on it, but that is not part of our current process, and I think that's a very valid comment.
Councilor Rolfing.
Could I speak with the property owner, please? Did I hear you say that you went over and cleaned the snow off?
The next morning.
Next morning,
Yes,
but could not get the ice off, so you left that?
I could not get the ice off. I did not have ice melt. I was trying to get the snow off. I was not aware that there was ice underneath there. So when we cleaned it off, and as you can see, we shoveled it, and then there was that part underneath there. My goal was to come back to clean that off with ice picks and with ice melt, and by the time I got back, it had been taken care of, yes.
So you left it the way we see it here?
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilor Jameson.
Okay.
Mayor, just as a procedure, you might make sure there's nobody else in the audience that wanted to come forward. Just
Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to this item in the audience? Okay. Very good. And there has been a motion. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Jameson?
yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That's passed 7-1. Item 14.
Item 14 is a resolution approving the special assessment rule for tree trimming in various areas in the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Dwayne Stahl representing Parks and Recreation for the special assessments for tree trimming. Before you, you have 35 assessments, and I would like to add or make a correction. After you received the assessment roll, I was made aware of a property. It's item number 15, 921 West 7th Street. This property was in the process of a foreclosure. The date we sent the letter to the property owner, it was about a week later. It went through a sheriff's sale, went to the South Dakota Housing Authority. So the letter did not go to the property owner, and it's one of our tests that we do want to make sure that the property owner receives proper notification, that we did do the trimming, and that they receive that notification. So with that, I would entertain any questions you may have.
Before I go to the council, is there anyone in the audience wanting to speak to this item? Ms. Stenger, welcome.
Tim Stanga. This is one of my pet peeves, is trimming trees on the boulevards. You pay taxes for your property, and now you're going to pay a fine if you don't have your tree trimmed. So you're being double taxed. One thing I realized over the last couple of weeks is Brandon, they trim their trees in the boulevard now because they made it a ordinance. So maybe Sioux Falls should maybe listen, and maybe they might stand up and take a roll and do their job, because the tree is their property. And by charging people for trimming their trees, again, it's a double tax. And I think that the city has to start realizing what their role is in town.
Is there anybody else who wanted to speak? Please, welcome.
Carol Flower again. I didn't realize this would be on your agenda today, but I just thought I'd relay our experience. We trim our trees probably every 2 years or so. And when the notices came out about, so many feet above the sidewalk, so many feet above the road, we went out and we trimmed everything. And then we got another notice, and we went out and measured, and I actually had the gentleman come out and actually measure it itself. There was one branch that went over the road at an angle like this, and this much of it fell under those considerations, and that was the part that lined right up with the curb itself, where most of the time no truck would ever be driving there. And I felt so badly because this was a huge branch that is probably 40 some plus years old, and I love trees, and I plant trees, and I love, I hate to take anything away from the natural form and structure of the tree. And this bothered me a great deal, and I think it bothered me so much that when I was driving around Sioux Falls, all of a sudden I started noticing all the trees where I could, in some of them on city property, where I could go up on the sidewalk and I could reach up there and I could grab the tree with no problem at all. And I'm pretty short. And I saw trees that were on city property that were hanging over and that did not conform to those regulations. And I thought, this doesn't seem fair. And so it's just something to think about, that if you expect people to be doing this, the city needs to do it too on their own property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Flower. Dwayne, would you mind explaining to the people of Sioux Falls how often a person's property is evaluated for potential tree violations?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, actually, they are evaluated every day as people go for walks. And if there's any situation out there where people have an issue, they can call us and we will follow up on that and use the complaint process to carry that through. But we also have the program called Project Trim, which cycles through the city. Every 5 years, we do a section, 1/5 of the city. And when we're doing that section, not only on the streets, we're going in the parks, and we're making sure the parks are trimmed up, not only in the parks, but the perimeters along the streets and sidewalks. We're like any other property owner. If there's something brought to our attention, we will respond to that.
Councilor Stegers.
Yes. You know, the city is a property owner for most of these trees, because most of these trees that you're dealing with are on the Boulevard, which is owned by the city. These are city-owned trees, and we're forcing citizens to maintain these trees. I guess I sympathize a lot with Mr. Stenga, who mentioned about Brandon, who seems to be more of a progressive community when it comes to tree trimming than Sioux Falls is. And we've talked about this for many years, about the city trimming trees. And, you know, hopefully in the near future, we'll finally get an ordinance having the city take the responsibility for doing this, because it is their trees. And in the meantime, we should thank citizens who do trim the trees for the city. Just one quick question here, though. You said 50 properties, Dwayne, is that right, at $5,250? Or did I misunderstand it?
Excuse me. You should have 35 on yours?
35.
Is that correct? With the one addition, recommending the 921 West 7th Street off the roll.
Tamara, can you answer that for Dwayne?
I'm sorry. The resolution references the assessment roll that was made available to the public when we published the agenda. So my recommendation would be that you make a motion to adopt the resolution and then make a motion to amend the resolution by removing number 15 from the listing, from the assessment roll listing. That would be my recommendation.
Councilor Karski.
If I could, the property is 921 West 7th Street, that's actually item 14.
Not according to my
roll.
list.
No.
I guess I'm looking at Sire.
Yes, Councilor Aguilar.
There are 40 also listed.
For item 14.
That's why I referenced the address,
What
because I'm
item
not
number?
sure their numbers.
You could just use the property address.
Property address, 921 West 7th Street.
Councilor Aguilar.
Two of them there.
Also, not all these trees are on the boulevard, are they?
Correct.
Some of them are in people's yards themselves.
Correct.
But they hang over the...
Yes, Councilor Rolfing.
Just like to make one comment on this trees in the boulevard. I recently purchased a home, and it has one tree in the boulevard that I wish wasn't there. And I know when it's time for the street department to come along and fix the curb and gutter because the roots have, pushed the gutter or the curb out, because that'll be their responsibility because it's a street. And I purchased the house knowing that was there. I take responsibility for having to trim that. I think if the people of Sioux Falls want to have a nice tree in their park out there, I call it the parking, then they purchase the tree, and maybe it is somewhat of their responsibility to keep that trimmed up. The land right there is ours, if you want to look at it that way, technically. But the trees, the things that are planted there, we're not asking them to plant those trees there. So potentially, I would think it would be partly their responsibility, or it should be their responsibility to keep them trimmed, whatever. I guess maybe that's another way to look at it.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson Jr.
Mr. Stahl, could you explain to Councilman Rolfing here what would happen if the tree roots were pushing out the curb and gutter or the sidewalk? What would the city be telling him as a property owner? Even the curb and gutter, the tree's your responsibility.
Right. The street department has a program to go in and refabricate or repair curbs and gutters, things like that. The sidewalk would be the responsibility of the homeowner also to maintain, and if it's pushing that up, there are engineering standards that must be met. There's several options for the homeowner to remove that panel and do some root pruning to replace the panel, but it would be at the expense of the homeowner.
And that is the curb and gutter too, correct?
I believe the curb and gutter is done by the, I'll have Chad answer that.
Yeah, Chad Heavey, the curb and gutter is all repaired by the city.
But if the tree roots are pushing up that curb and gutter, what are we going to tell the property owner for that tree?
Well, we have to trim, we have to do some pruning every year when we're replacing curb and gutter. And so we actually, at times will have to cut away some of the trunk to make the repair.
Okay, I'm going to go back, Chad, because a couple years ago we had this discussion. There was a property on the street on the west side of the VA, late in a twin home. The tree was in the medium. It was the branch or the roots were pushing up curb and gutter, and the property owner was told that it was her responsibility to take care of that tree.
I'm not aware of that situation.
Okay, I'll even take you over there if you'd like, because the tree is still there. That property owner could not afford to do that. And I got that call, and I remember specifically coming and talking to street department and everyone about that. So I'm very, very certain that if the tree is in the medium and those roots are pushing up that curb and gutter, that we're going to tell the property owner that they're responsible for that tree.
And like I said, I'm not aware of that ever happening.
Okay, I will get you that address to take a look at.
Councilors, we still don't even have a motion yet. Would anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the resolution.
Second, Karski.
There's been a motion to approve this resolution, and the second by Councilor Karski. And the main motion was made by Councilor Entenmann. Is there any further discussion?
Mr.
Councilor,
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd make an amendment to remove item 15 from the list for tree trimming.
There's been a motion to amend this to remove item 15 that's on the list from the tree trimming.
For clarification, that address is 921 West 7th Street.
And Dwayne, is that right?
That.
Very good, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Not an amendment.
Very good. A roll call vote on the amendment first.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar? Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
The amendment is passed 8-0. Now we have an amended main motion. Councilor Anderson Jr.
Mr. Stahl, can I have you back up here, please? Just have a question. Since the ice storm, we've done a lot of trimming of trees in the mediums. We've been working on hangers and that. Are we completely done at this time with doing any type of trimming on any trees in the medium?
No, tree trimming is an ongoing process. I anticipate, as we talked about before, our cyclic program, it'll take me 5 years to get through the park system, get all our trees into a condition I'd like to have them in.
I guess the reason I'm asking is after that ice storm, we took the responsibility for those trees in the medium for that emergency period.
We took responsibility to reduce the hazards. So it was hazard mitigation. It wasn't proper pruning per se out there. The cuts were to remove the hazard. It wasn't necessarily, they weren't allowed to take them back to a proper pruning cut. So there's a lot of work to be done on those trees.
Okay, thank you.
Council, great job. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
And that is passed 7-1. Item 15.
Item 15 is a resolution authorizing Siouxland Libraries to gift a self-checkout system to the Vermillion Public Library.
Mary Johns, Library Director. This is a piece of equipment that was replaced with RFID technology that we just implemented in all of our branches. And this gives an opportunity for Vermillion, who is just beginning to look at self-checkout and security, an opportunity to engage in that. And this is equipment that actually is no longer supported from the technology angle.
Thanks, Mary. Is there anyone in the audience who want to speak to this? Council, questions or motions?
For approval, Anderson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve, and it was seconded by Councilor Karski. Councilor Karski. All of those, or roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 16.
Item 16 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the legal description of Annexation Resolution Number 1213, Annexation 2012-1205, West 12th Street and North Ellis Road.
Kevin Smith with Planning and Building Services. This is essentially a housekeeping item. When the property was annexed, there was an error in the legal description. That was corrected, and now there's another error. And it was originally listed as being in Section 16. It's supposed to be Section 15. So the property is still annexed. We just need to fix the legal description.
Kevin, thank you. Is there anyone who wanted to speak to this item? Council?
Move to approve, Entenmann.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Emmons made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 17.
Item 17 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those boards being Board of Historic Preservation, Thomas Keller and Elizabeth Schultze, Business Improvement District Board, Main Street, Gary Gasper, Lauren Kospel, Cindy Polishi, Lyle Pudwill, Dave Syverson, Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, Scott Hofer, Orpheum Theater Advisory Board of Directors, Aaron Rietzma, Solid Waste Planning Board, Lindsay DiMatteo.
Thank you. Is anyone in the audience want to speak to this item? Council?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Jamison.
There's been a motion to approve by Councilor Erpenbach, seconded by Councilor Jameson. Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, I'm not sure I should ask this question, but we do have 5 people being appointed to the Business Improvement District Board. Why so many people at one time like that?
Do my best to answer it, and I guess the way the terms come up or come due on some of these boards, they come due, and so you have to fill them. One of the things that we are looking at doing, Councilor Staggers, right now is we're evaluating all the boards, trying to evaluate whether we can even strengthen them more so that we don't have so many people coming off a board at a certain time, so that you can get more diversity. For example, maybe 2 people going off on a board one year, 2 people another year, 2 people another year, especially on these where you have these 3, 4, or 5-year terms. I didn't set these up, but we are looking at trying to find a way to strengthen that. David, any comments?
Just, Mayor, I would reiterate, yeah, we're taking that on as a top 10 project, but also, if memory serves, I believe this particular board has probably at least 15 members. So my guess is if they have 3-year terms, you're replacing essentially a third of that board every year. So that wouldn't be out of line.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't kick anybody off, if that's what you were thinking. So thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
And that is passed 8-0. Item 18.
Item 18 is to set a date of hearing for Tuesday, September 10th, 2013 at 7 o'clock. A proposed resolution vacating the public right-of-way on East 41st Street from South Cleveland Avenue to BNSF Railroad Row and South Cleveland Avenue from BNSF Railroad Row to East 41st Street.
Good evening, Chad Heavey with the Engineering Division of Public Works. This right-of-way is unimproved and is north and west of 41st and Southeastern. A partial utility easement will be maintained if the right-of-way is vacated. And this is a remnant from when the subdivisions in this area were platted. And engineering is in support of the vacation.
Thanks, Chad. Is there anyone who wanted to speak to this item? Council? Yes, Councilor Jameson.
Chad, I can't help but ask, but how do you find all these remnants? You find them all the time.
To be honest, I looked on my GIS map, and this did not show up as platted right of way. But the petitioner is Slate Ronning, and I think he owns all the property on both sides of this, and he's always known it was there. And
okay,
so it's more of a housekeeping item.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Move to approve Entenmann.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Entenmann has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson? Karski?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Council, any new business? Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Yes, Mayor, as we discussed the assessments and the notification to landlords, I would like to just ask you to encourage your departments to use that database that we created years ago of landlords as a contact for contact purposes.
Councilor Anderson, Jr., I've got a note in my hand that I took during the testimony. It's titled Notification of Snow Removal and Other Items. And on the list it says, why don't we send out a notice? Why aren't we being consistent? And also, why don't we assess the $100 on the snow removal? And I think I can't answer entirely, but one of the things that we are looking at doing is to make it more consistent is putting it in one department that is an expert at doing this. So I've got it. It'll be in my pocket. It'll be out of my pocket tomorrow morning, and it'll be an email sent at 8:01.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second Entenmann.
Councilor Karski's made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Sioux Falls. Make it a great night.